Every year, lakhs of students apply to business schools, but very few ever get the chance to hear from admissions officers themselves. Today, you have that chance with us. Welcome to Admissions Pe Charcha. Today, we are talking to Mr. Joshua Sim, Assistant Director of Admissions at Singapore Management University. Welcome, Joshua.
Thank you.
So, nobody ever gets into admissions just like that, right? What is your story behind it?
Well, I did get into admissions just like that. So I was looking for my first job actually.
Okay.
And a friend recommended me to Singapore Management University.
Okay.
Now you must know Singapore Management University is an aspirational brand, right? When we were studying for our polytechnic certificates, diploma, we are looking at our A-levels in Singapore. The three names always comes up, right? You have your NUS, NTU, and SMU. So I never got a chance to study at any of these universities, right? So naturally, when the opportunity came to interview for a role at SMU, I tried. It started off as any normal administrative job would be like. You go for an interview, you start doing operations. So that's what I now term admissions operations. So it's a boring story. What happened afterwards was what was more inspiring, I would say. It's about looking at candidates, prospects, applicants with real needs for their education. They truly believe that having education would transform their life and their career. And that's where the human centricity hit me. And that's why I embarked on a more front-facing role thereafter. So I've been with SMU for 11 years now, close to. Yeah, wow. It's been some time.
So how has looking at so many journeys so closely shaped your perspective?
I would say it's inspirational, right? Because you get to see students who have given up a lot to come to Singapore to study and to embark on their career. Some of them also did their own ventures while they're in Singapore. Mm-hmm. And that helps to put things into perspective. It's not just a place. A university is not just a place where you come to get your education. Is where you come to position yourself towards your aspiration, getting the right connection, right curriculum, right knowledge to transform your abilities into applicability, right? So I think that has helped shape why this role is so important. Now we have international organizations like GMAC and obviously many different professional bodies that seek to professionalize this part of the higher education, which is admissions for postgraduate programs. And I think they are doing a very important work because this is a profession. It's no longer just about administrative enrollment of students. And that helps put things into perspective.
So Joshua, do you think a role which is repetitive, I mean, this job which you do, is the same thing again and again. How do you stay motivated with the same thing?
So one of my mentors said that this is a job that you get to see different people every single time. And that helps, right? Put things into perspective, but really it frames how you see the world, how you see people, how you navigate their uncertainties and their journey with them. So for me, it's always been about customer journey, customer relations, account management in that sense. Not treating them just as client, obviously, but also as human that probably have similar aspirations with you. So it's not repetitive. What is repetitive, however, is the administrative work that still comes with every part of the job. So for that, that's where AI automation comes into play.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think we will also discuss today.
Talking about AI, since you've brought the topic.
Yeah.
So, how is the world with the AI now in the admission space versus it was earlier?
I think across the different discussions we had this year in our international forums, AI is still very much on the top of our minds. We're getting a bit fatigued though, right? So many schools are implementing some form of AI into their workflow. Right. They are also looking at AI from different angles. I think some ethically. How do you use AI in things like admissions process, essay writing, even interviews? How do you detect such usage if they are irresponsible? Right. So, for example, we've seen candidates doing AI prompts while they're doing the interviews. Right. And so this provides us with a way to educate our students about how they should be using AI, even in their admissions phase. So before you come into the program, we'll be telling you, you can frame your essays by AI. You can even prepare your interview through AI. But at the end of the day, people can see through you if you're not authentic enough and if you're just providing AI answers. If you look back at how admissions interviews were conducted, questions have to remain pretty similar so that you can apply the matrix and rubrics across the board to reach a wide, diverse group of candidates to ensure that they get similar scoring across different interviewers.
Right. So with most students using AI nowadays, the more authentic they are, they will stand out. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And obviously the authenticity can only be gauged by the interviewer at that point of time, right? So it's also your human connection with the interviewer.
Right.
Right. So you could be authentic, but if you cannot communicate or articulate your values, your vision, your experience, well, that's where something will be missing from your interview.
I think you made a very valid point about articulation. That is, I think, a huge problem when it at least comes to people from our side of the world. That, although they are good with grades, they have done things on their resume.
Yeah.
But when it comes to answering it confidently, it sort of just misses out, or they are unable to, present it. So there is there was an article I was reading that 42% rejection at a B school level is because of the interview miss. What is your take on that?
So you're right to say a lot of our students from our side of the world, applicants from our side of the world, they tend to be a bit more reserved. They tend to not want to overly brag about their achievements or overly provide a glimpse of what they have actually done in their career. So there's usual stuff like, I have 10 years of work experience at SMU and that's about it, right? And we move on. I think the part where you talk about articulation should come in, especially when it comes to you presenting different facts about yourself. So when it comes to CV writing, for example, right? You talk a lot about what your job responsibilities are, but you never talk about your achievements. So I think that's something that's still missing in most of our applicants. They talk about their responsibilities, but they never talk about, I've turned over $10 million in the past year for my company. I've achieved a 50% increase in target. Yeah, so Asians tend to be a bit more reserved. Whereas when you speak with Western candidates, I think they are more open about that. Sometimes we feel that perhaps our companies will not allow us to say such things,
So you're saying that the impact is not there when it comes to the Asian, Indian side of students. The impact is missing in the resume.
So now that we are talking about Westerners and our part of the world, people are saying that Asia is becoming the new US for business education. What is your take on that?
I think we have a long way to go, but I think we can catch up very quickly, right? Because in Asia, at least, we are not so hesitant when it comes to regulations. Ethically, I think we are navigating our way there, but at the same time, we are more agile. For example, we don't work 9 to 5. We can work anytime we want to achieve the goals that we want to go for. We are driven in that sense because basically of our culture, right? Right. So nothing against the West. I think it's always good to have human rights, to have work-life balance. But at the same time, Asia is undergoing transformation and development at a pace that will be that has already surpassed that of the West.
Yes. So can you tell us a little more about that? Why do you think students are choosing Asia now more than ever?
I mean, obviously, the West are facing current problems with their economies, with their immigration policies, and the immigration policies don't just happen at the immigrant level. It goes all the way down to where students are applying for student visas.
Right.
You look at some parts of the West where students don't feel safe anymore, and I think in Asia we pride ourselves on creating safe, cohesive environment and cultures where students, especially those who are from from different nationalities and races, can thrive. I think Singapore provides a very good, solid foundation for that. Right? So the stability is there. The culture is international, is global, is diverse. And also students can find a sense of belonging in an Asian culture. Yeah. So I think many of our students say, if I go to the West, it's far away. Right? It's not as connected. There's no community in that sense. Yeah.
So just a question, very different question, but primarily when we with as College of I team, we speak to students and understand the ROI, what kind of so how do you justify, the Singaporean cost versus the MBA return on investment? And, just walk us through the entire MBA ROI story as you see it now.
So if you look at MBA programs, where do you really get return for your money, right? When you look at American MBAs, if you're going for top-notch ones, they cost a bomb, right? You look at UK, the cost of living is way higher than in Singapore, all right? So if you're looking for top universities in Asia, you see in Hong Kong, obviously, but mostly in Singapore as well, right? And that's where your value comes, right? I think our programs in Singapore have ranked consistently well for value for money, for example, right? So the biggest hurdle in everybody's mind is Singapore has a very high cost of living.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it's really the rent, all right? So you have rent that goes as low as, say, 1,000 Singapore dollars, just to be cautious, to as high as $15,000 if you want, right? It depends on your lifestyle. If you're really living a student lifestyle, probably you'll be spending, close to 1,500 to 2,000 maximum per month. And to help our students, we include internships as part. I mean, internships obviously go beyond that, but internship also pays, right? So that helps with their daily expenses, their miscellaneous expenses. And in Singapore, transportation, food, still relatively affordable. To be honest, I spend a lot more here in Delhi than in Singapore.
That's true. Delhi is an expensive city.
Yeah. So then, obviously, the ROI would be important. Increasingly, I find myself asking prospects, do you only see ROI in terms of the monetary value, in terms of your income after graduation? Because if you do, at least there is a baseline in Singapore. So minimum pay, if you want to remain in Singapore after graduation, is about 5,600 to 5,009 now. But it's going to increase to 6,002. So if you are competitive enough, if you get to stay in Singapore after graduation, you're earning a minimum of, say, 90,000 a year. I think that's good return.
That's a fairly good return. I mean, 90,000 is really good as a starter. So a follow-up question on, the investment bit is, there is an expectation from the Indian audience or from the family, right, who's making the investment, that they will get a short job. Now, getting a job is very subjective on your experience, on what you've learned, on your skills. The industry is changing, trends are changing. So do you think, or is it a myth that going to a B school means landing a higher job? Or should you see it with that lens? Or should you see it with a larger story that ultimately it is needed for your grand scheme of things? I mean, you're building a 30-year career, 40-year career, and then you are, managing teams, scaling up business and whatsoever. So how do you want to sort of respond to a number when it comes to a B school story?
So considering your question, I would say, firstly, always consider why you're taking your master's degree. Don't just do it because of your parents. Don't just do it because you have a need to validate something. You should, all our programs are by coursework and it's designed for the industry. So if you know that you have reached a bottleneck, you have reached a ceiling that you need formalized education that is highly intensive and rigorous, education that connects you to industry, then consider doing a master's degree. Because if not, you can find success in other ways. It could be less costly. It could be a more valuable return on your time and resources invested. All right. Not everybody needs to do a master's degree. But if you know the reason for doing a master's degree, then pursue the one that is best catered for your needs. So it should be needs-based in that sense, right? So we have met a lot of students with family business. Now, they always will tell us that ultimately they want to return to their companies, their family business to scale and grow the business. And that's where management studies would help, right? Because you get to know so many more things, so many more domains. You get to learn about applicability, practicality of your curriculum, and you get to apply it. And that's the most important, right? But at the same time, they still want that job opportunity in Singapore. So Singapore remains very attractive because you get this global exposure. Reason being, we have 6 million people on the island of 700 square meters.
Students have this question, right?
Yeah.
That if they are into a family business or if they are looking at starting up, then should they need a master's or should they come to a MBA or any program or should they just start up?
Yeah. So you don't need masters once again to be successful in life, to do a startup, to do various things. But if you know what you're looking for and is found in a master's, you should take a master's because it's a very formalized, rigorous, intensive way of doing things where you learn it in an accelerated pace. So for example, we have a 12 months program designed just for that, right? You get access to industry mentors, you get access to VCs, hedge funds, angels, investors in our ecosystem. Now, Singapore is like a startup market for ASEAN, right? Obviously, you don't need Singapore to have your own funds, to have your own network or access. But if you are lacking that, then you need to put yourself in an environment that has everything to support you in your growth, whether it's for your family business, whether you want to scale it up, you want to introduce new services or products, or you want to do your own venture, right? So the ecosystem will be very important. So it's about gaining access, I would say, to the right knowledge pool. So universities are huge lakes, huge depositories of knowledge, experiences, and that's what we try to do at SMU. We have professors who come from industries. They have been there 10, 20, 30 years. They're still consulting actively. They're still working with venture creators, serial entrepreneurs, your funding options in the industry. So if you've never had the access, getting a master's degree is one of the ways that you can do that. We have entrepreneurs who are successful but never had a formalized training.
Right.
So they don't know where their blind spots are.
Did you hear Elon Musk when he said that MBAs are not required? In fact, they are the biggest hindrance to creativity in today's market and new products coming in.
Yeah, so I don't agree with Elon Musk on a lot of things, but obviously he's successful in his own way, and he's one of those who probably found it by himself.
Right.
But for many of us who are MBA graduates, I think MBA has enriched and empowered us to do different things that we've never thought that we would have done.
I think it's just a program which is structured. It brings everything to the table. Singapore being Singapore. And, it just works out very well for, any of the age groups. So coming to the, the kind of focus you have for the Indian students, what are you looking for?
So we are looking for high quality students across the board, not just Indians. But obviously, India has many high quality students. For example, one of the differentiating factors would be your GMAT GRE scores already. Top students, top scores from India. So beyond that, what makes you different? So you could have a 680 in your GMAT, your previous iteration, right? Versus a 780. A 780 with 2 years of work experience who cannot articulate his vision for himself, his career aspiration in a logical and, I would say, realistic manner, who probably lose out to a 680 who knows that he's going to run his own family business in 3 to 5 years, wants to gain global exposure, international experience in finance in Singapore. So your stories will define where you land in terms of your studies.
Wow.
Right. So another very common question we get is MIM versus MBA. So other than the age factor or the years of work experience, is there any other factor which should use to differentiate?
So the age factor, the work experience is there, but really if you are a bit older, a bit more senior, no MIM program will take you in that sense. And that's why you see executive MIM, part-time MIM being launched now, because there is a market for candidates who just want foundational general management studies without the, I would say, the prestige, the branding that an MBA gives to you, right? But honestly, what differentiates the MBA from the MIM really is the classroom experience, the network, the connection, the lateral learning that you get. Right. Even in a MIM, say executive program, probably would be technician level or administrative level, 10 years of work experience. That's fine because you're learning business management.
You've picked up a very interesting topic, right? This is a question we are answering every day. That is it a disadvantage if you do a master's in management early, or versus waiting it out and doing an MBA?
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
So if you want to differentiate yourself early, a master's degree in any fields will help, right? You want to be the smartest guy in AI in the room, take a master's in AI, right? But it should be critical. You should come to a critical point where you know that you need that degree to differentiate yourself. Many students, many grads, after they have done their first degree, they wouldn't know because they have not experienced what it's like out in the world, in the market. Sometimes it takes realization before you know what kind of program you actually want, what kind of knowledge and skills you actually want to gain. And that's where you possibly find yourself in a MIM or MBA debate, right?
Makes sense.
Right. So if you are looking at a MIM, right, it means that you want it now. You want the differentiation now. But if you are looking at an MBA, you kind of know that you need more experience. You want to expose yourself a bit more. You want some pedigree to your resume, right, before you jump into an MBA.
So can I say that students with non-business undergraduate is a right fit for masters in management?
It is how it's supposed to be. It was designed like that, I think, previously in Europe. But we are seeing candidates with business background come into MIM as well, mainly because they don't have that real exposure. A lot of our studies on the undergraduate level is still very theoretical. Right, still very academic focused. There's no practicality when you bring it to the market. Right. I mean, you can use all the formulas you want, but you will never work in a real finance situation. Yeah. So so for the MIM program, it is about bring application once again into your future at work, your scope and your roles.
Another follow-up on the MIM is that you need a year of work experience ideally to sort of get the right fit.
Hard question. It really depends. I think that's what everybody will tell you. It really depends. The best MIM, perhaps how I'll phrase it is the best MIM students know that at the get-go, they want to further differentiate themselves already. They don't have a period of indecision in that sense where should I study now? Should I study later? Should I clock a few years of work experience or not? I know I want a MIM because it's going to set me apart from the competition that's entering the workforce. So once again, it's very industry centric. So there are MIM with specialization that helps you to do that. So if you have done a general program, you also won't know where to place yourself. But if you have that specialization, you know you want to go into marketing, but with a broader general management background, that helps you place yourself in a role that allows certain level of leadership and growth.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that gives us some perspective on the masters in management. One of the questions which is asked to us every day. Now switching on to the MBA gear, right? I mean, typical work experience is 4 years, what I have understood.
5 to 6 for us.
5 to 6 for you.
Yeah.
So that's very strict, I would say. I mean, a lot of top schools
that's
in
average, but the requirements is 2. So we do have candidates with 2 to 3 years as well.
Right. So what is the 2 to 3 year students you are generally looking for? Because primarily that is the younger fitment.
So yesterday we met somebody like that, just like that, and we will recommend admissions for her. Why? She has 2 years of work close to 3 years now, of work experience in a marketing firm. But she also has about 3 to 4 years of work experience running her own venture at the same time. Right?
Wow.
So it's not just about, we restrict you to 2 to 3 years of work experience. It's about your experience across the board. If you run your own venture, you actually have dabbled in various things. You have to look at your own manpower constraints, your resource constraints. You need to strategize your business growth. You need to quantify the numbers of your profit, your revenue, your EBITDA, right? So that's where this experience will come into play in the classroom setting, where we talk a lot about lateral learning, right? We don't want a student who comes in perfect scores, 3 years at a consulting firm, but have never spoken much in his life. Yeah.
Right.
You want the contribution to the classroom, the interactive
we need
discussions.
the contribution
Of course,
to the classroom.
Very interesting. And how would you, differentiate when you see applicants coming in with work experience? I mean, 4 years, 5 years, like you said. What do you need? Managerial roles, throw some light on consulting profiles?
Yeah. So I'll just share some light on the applicants we get from India. So many of them come from purely technical background. So a lot of them are in technology consulting, for example, but they understand that they want to pivot to management, to strategic consulting. They need more abilities, knowledge in the whole business value chain. And that's when they realize they want to take an MBA for that. So that makes a very clear distinction between those who know what they want and those who don't. So you have sometimes candidates from, say, a background in medical profession,
Right.
looking to do an MBA to pivot, but he doesn't know what is required. So you need to do your research. Why are you studying an MBA? What do you want to gain out of this experience? So when you start talking about doing M&A, investment banking, but you want to do consulting, it gets very jumbled. So what are you exactly looking for? And that's what many professionals in admissions will try to sieve out from you as a prospect, as a candidate. Are you very clear with your vision for yourself? Are you very clear about your career aspiration? Because if you're not, it would be hard for any good programs to help you to achieve those goals.
To make this a little anecdotal, can you think of any application that has really stood out for you?
So for MBA applicants, you know our average is about 5 to 6 years. Typically, there are candidates who have, say, 8 to 10 years. You start to look at them a bit more closely. You wonder what their inclinations are towards, especially when you're looking at career pivots. So we have an entrepreneur. She's from Indonesia.
Okay.
She has always been entrepreneurship her life. She runs her own photography studio. Right? She actually is interesting because, you're from the creative side. You want to do an MBA. What's the reason? Right? She was not overly clear, but she knew that she wanted the business management understanding for her own business firstly. Okay? And then also to look at a pivot into consulting.
Wow.
So typically it's not the ideal profile to do a pivot, but the power of the MBA is it provides you with strategic options. So you create a portfolio of skill sets that can take you across industries. And that's what she did. So post-graduation, she actually went into sustainability consulting, which was very new at the time. She graduated back in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, so she was at the forefront.
Yeah, I mean, sustainability consulting, the entire ESG, I think that field is growing. So, how does SMU does when it comes to, the pivot, the experience, building it within the students who's coming in with that mind frame too.
Yeah.
It's a very hard job, even for the career advisor, right, to suggest a shift. So how does that work out in span of how long is the MBA? I think it's
so maximum 15 months
15 months. So wow,
for the full-time program.
Wow.
Yeah. So how we do it is we plug in sustainability curriculum into all our modules. So about 1 out of 8 lesson has to focus on sustainability in finance, sustainability in operations management. So our students have the fundamentals ready. We have tracks in sustainability in the MIM program. We have sustainability modules in our MBA program. But Singapore is leading in sustainability.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
So for example, the Singapore Green Finance Center is based on campus in SMU. Right? So I have always been looking at our curriculum, revising it almost on a year-to-year basis to ensure that our students have future-ready skills. Okay? And that's the general thinking. Obviously, there will always be problems. There will always be people wondering, why should we do a sustainability track? But at the end of the day, we want our students to be ready for the future. And that's where they get all this from. So we have sustainability professors teaching in the business school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a interesting topic. Change in trends, change in career. Sustainability, like you said, that SMU is doing fantastic. Singapore has some
What
good
are
things.
some other lesser known programs which you would like to talk about?
So we have 3 finance programs, for example.
Right.
Masters of Science in Applied Finance, in Quant Finance, and Wealth Management.
Okay.
Right. So if you are looking at Singapore as a finance hub, and just to let you know, finance accounts only for 12% of our economy. So we're actually very well diversified. Finance, once again, is one of the top, obviously. And that's why many students want to go to Singapore. Now, if you're doing applied finance, what we do is we help you with your CFA qualifications as well.
Okay.
So you can do your CFA level 1 and 2 while you're doing your master's degree. You can further specialize into things like fintech and real estate. Real estate is big in Singapore, right? And it serves as a model for the region as well. Okay. Then you have quant finance, which is a field that has grown tremendously in the past decade. And is drawing a lot of professionals, well-trained professionals who are at the axis of mathematics, finance, and computation, programming. Okay, and that's where you do look at things like algorithmic trading. You look at things like risk assessment, management, and analysis, and that also helps you with your FRM level 1 and 2.
Absolutely.
So it's very practical in that sense. And finally, Singapore is a wealth management hub. So we obviously want to lead in that front when it comes to education. So we have the Masters of Science in Wealth Management. And with the increase of about 400 offices, I think, to 2,000 family offices now in Singapore within 3 years.
2,000 family offices. That's a really interesting figure.
So you can guess the amount of capital that is moving into Singapore.
Wow.
And the need for professionals to manage that.
So talking about quant finance, Indians love numbers, right? So is it mostly engineering background who are the focused audience for this, or do we also get students from the BCom, BBA setup? What is your take on the undergraduate requirements when it comes to the quant finance? That's a clarification because we are asked very regularly.
Yeah, sure. We see students coming from engineering backgrounds, but also increasingly from finance backgrounds. They know that they have to pivot away from traditional finance, right? It's no longer about the holistic value chain of finance. It's also about learning hard skills that will merge finance with modeling. I think modeling is very important. One of the things that they want to learn is understanding how to create their own financial models. So even candidates with no hardcore engineering or computing skills are coming into the program.
Right. And when you talk about modeling, I don't think within the undergraduate Indian classroom environment, there is a lesson on modeling, right? At a level which is needed for quant finance. Is there within the engineering side of things, because there is a Python requirement and there is a data science skills which is inbuilt within the part of the program.
Yeah.
But students who are doing generally the BA BCom track have a mindset of getting into chartered accountancy, CFA, like you said earlier, and then getting into consulting or the big fours, and pretty much that the goal. But trading, right, when they want to sort of get into that active environment of doing, playing with the hard cash, does not sort of happen with that audience. That is happening mostly with the engineering, which is the audience which is thinking of getting into finance. So for the ones who are in the chartered accountancy track and the the Indian, how do they build a future in trading?
So once you realize and recognize the needs which we have been talking about, you need to realize what you want, right? What they do is they look for programs that best marry the need, the skills you need. So they will pick up skills. So you don't have to be of engineering or programming background, because our program is meant to help you get into that. Right. So it's good for freshers from different industries. But that also obviously means you have a steeper learning curve. You need to put in more effort at the start to understand or utilize all the skills that you need in Python, for example, R, all very necessary skills. But we have the professional adjuncts. We have our faculty who will help you to get to where you need to be. Yeah. And also, once again, with the advent of AI, actually, you can kind of use AI in your work, right? It obviously not fully, but you will be supplemented by AI.
Right.
Yeah.
So AI has been the disruptor of this generation, right, currently. It's been disrupting jobs. It's been changing trends. So how is SMU adopting, the AI culture, the agentic culture? And we see that there is a lot of talk on across about the fresher hiring, right? The post MBA is being difficult. Comparatively, my stat says that Singapore has done well overall for the for the audience getting out. But what is your track on AI adoption and for the course? And how are you guys preparing for the next generation job?
Yeah. So AI has mostly been focused on the tech side. In terms of implementation, in terms of making its way into business curriculum, many schools, including us, are still feeling our way around it. How do we best marry human with AI to derive optimal results for different tasks and work and job scopes, right? So we are crafting our own AI curriculum, right? And very soon you will hear something about that, hopefully. But beyond that, in all of our classes, there are, once again, like ESG, AI tech would be part of your lessons.
Right.
How do you use AI in your workplace that makes the most sense? So repetitive tasks, data-intensive tasks. When it comes to human, what do you want to derive from your human experience, your creativity, your sense of moral and ethical behavior and understanding of the world, right? And how do you merge it to produce a cohesive result for the organizations and business that you are working for or you're running, all right? So I would say, honestly, most schools are still feeling their way around it. You will probably approach it from more of a tech school, computing school angle for now, but it's evolving quickly.
No, makes sense. I think AI has to be a mandatory skill
for everyone.
For everyone out there, and it is something which is not going to. It's only going to, become more mature over time.
Yeah.
To
I think back in 2019, our MBA already introduced things like digital transformation, machine learning. So back then we were trying to prepare ourselves already, and then when COVID happened, everything accelerated, right? Because we are living in virtual worlds basically.
Right.
Yeah, and then you jump on Zoom, and even now Zoom is kind of, in the past. Yeah, we're doing different formats. We are looking at how to do holographic images, visuals in classrooms. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you need to marry the advanced with the practical. You need to bring back everything into the right place at the right time.
So talking a little bit more on the industry, right? There is a consulting, and then you have the the regular manufacturing companies in Singapore. So explain us how the recruitment and the entire cycle, the student gets through the experience, the entire experience of the student. Although we have a student here today, which we will just get to understand. But what is your sort of?
I would say there's been uptick in recruitment for not just full-time employment opportunities, but also internships. So the past 2 years, we've seen some obstacles given the global situation and then its impact on Singapore. There is also, as with many other countries, a rising sense of wanting the best for the citizens first, putting citizens first. But in Singapore, I would still say it's quite moderate because at the end of the day, 6 million people, we have 1.9 million that are non-Singaporeans residing on the island. It shows that we need global talents and we want global talents to stay competitive. Once again, I can't emphasize how small Singapore is as a market, as an island.
Yes.
Yeah, we cannot depend on ourselves to survive in that sense. We want to attract the right people to Singapore, and going through education is one of the best ways to do that. Right?
Absolutely.
We want candidates, we want students, we want graduates to be able to assimilate into Singapore's society, to contribute to the economy, and to continue building up our reputation as a country that is stable and prosperous, that is welcoming to people of all race and all backgrounds.
Right.
Right. And I'm speaking as a Singaporean now, right? I truly believe. Yeah.
So, coming just a little bit of a trivia, I think as a Singaporean, you've gone through the 2 year of military training, right?
Yes, I have.
And throw some light on that. Just for the audience to know what it takes, what it means. And I think that's a very interesting part of, the differentiator between, what you guys do versus what anybody else does.
I think our counterparts in Israel and South Korea also undergo the same thing.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not something that we want or voluntarily want to do, but it does build character. You bring those disciplines into the later part of your life. As with all things that you may not want to do, it can be traumatic. It can be tiring on your body. I got an injury during my service, for example. But at the end of the day, I view it as a character building 2 years, right? You kind of codify your values, your morals, what you want to see being propagated throughout, the generations, your children, for example, right? You want the same kind of discipline, the hardship that you get them to endure. And ultimately that will make you better as a person.
And what if you don't want to do it?
So it's compulsory for a reason. Yeah, so you have to do it. And to all Singaporeans, do it to the best of your ability. Nothing in life ever comes easy.
Right.
Yeah, once you've gone through national service, you kind of understand what that means.
Yeah, very interesting. So, just coming back to the question of the whole learning, the academic, be it the quant finance or be it the masters in management, either of the programs, right, which the audience could be interested in. Is this a very experimental way? Because in the West, you talk about the US schools, they have a lot of experimental way in terms of, doing things. So this is more on the academic track, how India is, where you go theoretical. Or is it more on the case studies and discoveries and plant visit, factory visits? And tell us more about the program. How do you train the kids?
I wouldn't say experiential and practical. So you get to interact with real professionals who are in the industry. So like I said, many of them are adjuncts at our school.
Wow.
Right? So you get your core being very foundational, very fundamental, very academic with case studies to give you that practical approach. Right? But when it comes to electives, you are really learning about real estate from people in the industry who have a PhD. Right? So we marry the practical aspects of industry to the very rigorous academics in our program. We do everything by coursework for our master's program. So you don't have to write a thesis, but what you're actually doing is doing your research into companies. You are learning exploratory pathways as to how to solve problems from different perspectives, even in a specialized program. You do your company visits, you do your overseas visits as well. So we are building that into our programs across the board, right? So we have this thing called SMU XO. So that is a consulting practicum that takes place with an overseas company. Why? Because we believe Singapore is not Asia only, right?
Right.
Asia is Asia. You have so many cultures, you have so many nuances in the business dealings across the region. So we have offices in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Vietnam, opening one in China soon. We have international advisory councils made up of top business leaders who advise us on curriculum matters, on academic matters, on trends in business. So this provides a feedback loop into how we curate and craft our curriculum.
So how would you rank SMU as compared to its sister schools, NUS and NTU?
They are elder sisters. We are number 3 in a row. But in terms of our progress, I'm very proud. I'm very proud to be an SMU alumni, very proud to be a SMU staff, and I hope to contribute to the success of SMU in the years to come. Having said that, in terms of ranking, it's number 1 in my heart.
So that's good to know that is number 1, right? Because Indian audience generally looks at the ranking and makes a decision, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but adding on to my question, SMU is a management university,
It is.
whereas the other two are largely technical or holistic, right? Overall.
Yeah.
So don't you think SMU is a little more specialized?
We are very specialized. We typically rank amongst the top 15 specialist universities in the world.
Wow. So that's a
US
good
rankings.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's something that most people would know. In terms of our business research and its impact, we're top 2.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of our programs ranking, our masters in finance, for example, has always been a top 5 in Asia. And obviously we don't have that pedigree, the tradition, the history of our sisters and our competitors across the region. You will know there's INSEAD, there's ESSEC in Singapore as well. And because of their rich global exposure, their brand. SMU has not always been on the top of mind for some countries. And that's what we want to do. We want to let you know that SMU is here. SMU is a great, great, great school, a global brand that is going to come up very quickly. Yeah.
No, good to know. And I also wanted to let you know that Indians love SMU.
Okay, that's
I mean,
good.
as far as it has come to our student fraternity, we've had parents as a dream choice. It's a very difficult school to, get into. And coming to the main question for the audience, how can we save money? You should talk about scholarship and give us a hack.
Yeah.
As a matter of giveaway for this podcast.
Okay. So what we do is we provide scholarships consultation. We have different categories. You can actually speak to any of our admissions officer and they'll advise you on what your profile is most suited for. Now, we don't provide full scholarships, but what we do is we do partial so that we can cover as many students as possible. If you are admitted at SMU, it means that you have pedigree, you have quality, you have the ability to excel in life, and you have already shown it through your achievements. So when you look at things like leadership potential, you look at impact on Asia, on community impact, or even women in business, you probably would qualify already. It's just how quickly you complete your application and admissions with us and how quickly you submit your scholarship essay. Right. So we just need that.
But from a requirement point of view, just a follow up, do you need less money in the bank or somebody who's like financially bleeding versus somebody who has the money in the bank and sort of how does it work?
So to rephrase his question, is it need based or is it merit based?
Merit based only. Merit based.
Merit based.
But obviously, we have students who have a lot of merit, but they don't have any need and they've never applied. And we appreciate that as well because, the funding goes to people who are probably needs more financing that will help them make the decision.
And coming back to what you just said earlier, did you mean that it's like a first come, first serve thing? The faster you apply, the more chances?
Yeah. So we do rolling admissions.
Yes.
Right? So that also means rolling scholarship.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the sooner you do, the better it is. More the pool, the better
Bigger
show
pool.
it is.
Yeah.
Lastly, could you just tell us a little bit about the accreditations?
SMU LKCSB, Lee Kong Chian School of Business, is the only Triple Crown business school from Singapore. So we're accredited with AACSB, AMBA, and IQUIS. So the degree, the education that you get, certified, top quality, globally recognized. Only about 110 or 15 schools have that Triple Crown accreditation.
With that, we'll call it a wrap. Thank you so much, Joshua, for taking out the time, speaking to us, giving fantastic insights on Singapore city, job, different programs, structures, and everything possible, right? I think we are
Thank you for asking those questions that let us